So I decided to challenge myself this tournament by taking the maximum amount of this new Blood Knight unit that Creative Assembly added. It has anti-infantry instead of anti-large, but most importantly, it has a crazy amount more melee defense, which means it's a lot better at surviving in the enemy backlines, which means it'll also heal quite a bit because of its hunger ability. So game number 1, I got 3 knights against the forces of Cathay. He has a bunch of spears, which my knights can't just run into, but he kind of makes a misplay and summons in some ranged infantry. Because here's the problem, I spent a lot of money on my mobile cav, so that means a lot of his infantry can't really defend the new crane gunners that just got summoned in. And not only that, my Blood Knights are anti-infantry now, which means crowmen are gonna be having a pretty bad time. It's as simple as just leaving my knights in melee, because they'll definitely kill Jade Lancers, avoiding a little bit of magic, and then waiting until I can summon my Mortis Engine. Without any range damage, he can't stop my Mortis Engine from getting insane amounts of value, and we quickly win after that with my Blood Knights absolutely paying for themselves. And game number 2 is pretty straightforward too. A lot of people aren't ready for a max cavalry vampire counts build, so in this case, my opponent wasn't really ready for me to just dive his backline. With only 4 spears to defend and Scab Scrath basically knocking out 2, I just walk into the backfield, ignore his single entities, and the rest of the battle is quite straightforward. Things got a little bit sus though when he summoned the Regiment of Renowned Dragon Princes though, because these Blood Knights, they're not armor piercing, so against a dedicated anti-large armor piercing cavalry, even with the full surround, it's not looking too good. I'm still able to win though because of my ludicrous numbers of infantry, so we're still able to pull out a win by capturing all the points. And my Blood Knights are still able to pay for themselves because the early game just went so well. They cleaved through loads of infantry, more or less uncontested. The easy wins kind of fall off at game number 3 though, because now we're against Chaos Dwarves, who historically do quite a bit better against vampire counts. They have Fireglaves and Kadai, which do fire damage, which would usually mitigate corpse cart healing. But because we have so much cavalry in this battle, I go for a surround, and due to my anti-infantry on my super elite Blood Knights, we are able to get them routed. And remember, this usually wouldn't be possible because Black Knights, while they do have anti-infantry, they're not really going to survive against the anti-large that the Fireglaves have. Blood Knights, on the other hand, just refuse to die, and they just shred the infantry while also holding off the Kadai at the same time. And with this super expensive ranged infantry off the battlefield, the Chaos Dwarves have basically nothing left, and we're able to take yet another win. This doesn't mean Chaos Dwarves are out of the fight just yet though, because now we're up against Outer Region's disgusting single entity stack. He has a Dreadquake Mortar, which means he can obliterate my knights if I blob up too much. So what do? I simply ignore it for the entire battle and use my knights to kill things like bull centaurs, which they do very well against. The Dreadquake Mortar absolutely still does a lot of damage, but without any other units, he really doesn't have a lot of capture weight, and because I didn't spec too hard into infantry, there's not a lot of targets for him to shoot at exactly. This means the rest of the battle, I can basically just AFK on all 3 points, and there's nothing he can really do. Another victory for the Blood Knights, and while they didn't get that much value, they were really good for capturing points and pressuring areas where his mortar wasn't. So with that win, I'm now in the semifinals, and it appears my opponent has now doubled down, bringing in a Kadai Destroyer and the train, presumably all there to delete my knights off the battlefield. He summons in some blunderbusses too, but that's actually gonna be his downfall. Because while the Dreadquake Mortar is really good at killing blobs on your single entities, on your infantry, it's not gonna look so good. Knowing this, I dive my knights straight onto his blunderbusses with reckless abandon, and then I let him use his magic to essentially nuke all of our forces. This would typically be a really bad trade, but these blunderbusses are really the only infantry units he has. Everything else is a single entity, which means they can't really capture very quickly, which means I can just spam Crypt Horrors all game, and he's not capturing anything now. So now for the final test. In the grand finals, we're up against Charix again, playing as the High Elves, and we're able to use our cavalry to catch his skirmishers just like before. He does have a lot of elite infantry though that I have to worry about, and he summons out the dragon princes much earlier than before. And here's a bit of a problem. These guys are indestructible, man. My blood knights do not have the capability to kill them, and even though I got some Vargeist on the battlefield, they're not exactly killing these knights either. I disengage, but blood knights are still 70 speed, so it's not like they can really escape this situation, and things are looking pretty bad. My Grave Guard are trading into his Phoenix Guard pretty well, but losing all 3 blood knights and still not being able to bring his dragon princes below half HP is simply way too devastating. He cleans up the rest of my army with this cavalry advantage, and before you mention Hex Wraiths as a good counter to dragon princes because of their armor piercing, unfortunately they just kinda suck. They only get a quarter HP off his dragon princes before dying. But anyways, there you have it. A tournament run where I brought the maximum amount of blood knights every single battle. While they're definitely really good against infantry and mid-tier cavalry, they absolutely in no way help vampire counts at dealing with elite cavalry. However, I'm definitely still impressed, so you can expect to see them more in future tournament runs.